Hello and welcome to Life I Design, the podcast. I'm Nicki Traikos, author, educator, and artist, and your guide on this journey of intentional living, art, entrepreneurship, and personal growth. So get ready to challenge your thinking, ignite your creative passion, and take actionable steps towards a life you love. Let's embark on this transformative journey together. Hello and welcome to episode 22. Today's episode started off as an idea that I had about my new book, Watercolor Made Simple, and totally turned into a completely different episode when I was planning. And so I thought, I'm just going to go with it. So today is going to be a little bit of a story sharing, and hopefully you'll find it interesting and maybe be inspired by it. Okay, let's get started. Growing up, I was always the kid that had a lot of energy. I was a tomboy, and I loved to just be active and to play with other kids. I had a vivid imagination and loved to be on my own actually quite a bit. And I'd pretend I was one of Charlie's Angels, and I'd ride my bike around the neighborhood, the one with the banana seat. It's the 70s here, okay? So keep in mind. I would ride around the neighborhood and I'd look for crime to solve. I'd use my Lassie watch and talk into it like I was a spy, and really just enjoyed the carefree days of being outdoors, even being with friends, and exploring until the streetlights came on, which is when we had to be home for dinner. So there were also moments when I would sit in my room and I would doodle and draw and practice my handwriting, trying to make it as pretty as my BFF, whose handwriting and even drawing skills I always admired. I didn't have access to art supplies and things like that growing up. My natural knack for drawing and art was just something that I was good at, but didn't really get a chance to nurture. So into my teens and my 20s, I was always known as the creative one or the artistic one, but never really had a chance to follow my love for making art. I just didn't know what I could do or how I could be an artist versus, what really I needed to do was go to school and get a real job. That's what people around me were doing when I was growing up. But when asked, what did you want to be when you grew up, or what did you want to do growing up? I always answered with, I wanted to write and illustrate children's books. And I'd kind of say it with a smile. And I'd just be like in my head thinking, wouldn't that be nice? And it would leave my mind. And I kind of went back to my real life, getting a job like everyone else and, needing to find work. So keep in mind, we didn't have the internet back then. I didn't know anyone who was in a creative field getting paid to do something that they had a natural talent and passion for. People went to school and became teachers or accountants or lawyers or those kinds of things. But fast forward to the days when I left corporate and I decided to become a makeup artist. I shared this journey in an older episode. So if you haven't tuned into those earlier episodes, please do. So I don't want to repeat myself, but I left corporate to stay home with the kids, and I was a makeup artist at that time, again, looking for moments to express my creative side. If it wasn't things that I did around the house or activities I did with the kids, it was through my days of being a freelance makeup artist. So one of the things I did do during that time was I taught lessons and workshops, and I'd help women figure out the best colors for their skin tone. I taught them how to apply makeup to best suit their features. And I always felt like I wanted to leave them with more. So more support when I wasn't there, more instruction, more help. I wanted them to just feel amazing and be able to apply their makeup with ease. So having no business experience at this point, but always kind of feeling entrepreneurial, I decided I'd had a great idea. I was going to self-publish a book, and that I would use that book for my lessons and sell to clients. Now, I have zero publishing experience. At this point, I didn't really have any experience and wasn't qualified to do any self-publishing. And again, technology wasn't available, so I physically had to look through the yellow pages and figure out how I was going to find people. Actually, I think the internet did exist, but it wasn't the robust experience that we have today. So this idea that I had for a makeup book was actually pretty amazing and unique when I look back. I just didn't have the skills and, needed a lot of help. So I designed the idea, and it was a book that could stand on its own. So imagine it was really easy to kind of put on your sink next to you in the bathroom when you could apply your makeup. And this book would take someone, step by step through the process of things like how to apply your eyeshadow, where do you put your contour and highlight, how to do my very famous at the time wiggle and pull technique for applying mascara to create really long, thick lashes. It was pretty cool, I have to say. And I ended up hiring a young artist illustrator to illustrate it for me. I hired a freelance designer to do page layouts and a local printer who ended up charging me way more than I should have paid. And I bought far too many copies than I had the knowledge and capacity to sell at that point. Again, lots of lessons learned. I was not qualified and probably shouldn't have self-published, but I was really passionate. I was really proud of the book, that I did end up producing, considering I had zero experience with writing and designing and printing, never mind working on a book. But again, passion is what fueled me at that point. So in general, when I think back, I always loved having books and being surrounded by books. I just love that tactile experience of flipping the pages of a book, whether it's a journal or a sketchbook or a book that I'm reading. So my goal that I used to share when I was a kid of, one day writing and illustrating children's books, I wasn't too far off. Again, it was a goal that would just sort of pass my thoughts, maybe even pass my lips when people asked, and it wasn't anything that I thought that I could achieve. I thought, who am I to even dream of being a published author illustrator? But it was something that I always had a passion for, kind of always stuck with me. I kind of loved the idea of being a traditionally published author. I didn't know, in my 20s, 30s, 40s, if that was possible for me. I didn't believe it was possible for me, but it was something that always stuck with me. Even when I did my little self-publishing I'm going to tell you what it was called. It was Mango Tango Makeup Design. That was my makeup business. And I don't even remember the title of the book, but anyway. So fast forward a bunch of years, many decades, almost feels like a lifetime, I was approached to work on a book by my now publisher. And at that time, I was ready. I've always dreamed of having a traditionally published book and wanted someone to be able to take over editing and page layout and printing and distribution and all of those things that, go with publishing a book. I've tried my hand at self-publishing, and I still do to this day self-publish books. But there's something to be said about having someone else do all of the other stuff that go into publishing a book and who are experts in what they do. Okay, so let's go back a little bit more. So a few years ago, I followed Katie and Alana from Good Type. If you're not familiar with them, they are super talented, amazing women who also have a great podcast, actually, The Typecast by Good Type. And they were launching a 5-day summit called Artist to Author, just when I decided that a goal for me in that new year that was coming up, I think it was 2022, I was going to focus on writing an outline for a book idea and pitch it to some publishers. I had a book in mind. I knew it was going to be based on watercolor, and I wanted to have a tangible item for people who were learning with me how to paint watercolor. I wanted them to have a book in their hand to help support them through the journey. I already had online classes. I already knew, the format of what I wanted to teach. And again, it was going to be an extension of what I was already sharing and teaching. So I had all of those things already decided in my mind. But during this artist to author, I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to understand the publishing world a bit more and even like what was possible. So they had amazing speakers lined up and amazing guests, everyone from artists, editors to book agents. So I did the summit, I took notes, I researched who I wanted to approach to help me with publishing my first book, and then I went to work. And the internet's a magical thing. If you want to connect with people on Instagram, okay, stop what you're doing actually and listen up. If you want to connect with people on Instagram, I want you to strategically follow them and be more mindful with how you're interacting on the app. I know doom scrolling is a thing. I do it all the time. Oh my God, all the puppy reels and the cat reels, they make me laugh, and I can scroll for hours. But in that moment, I opened up Instagram and I strategically followed my top 3 publishers on Instagram, and I began liking and commenting on their posts. Okay, so different than doom scrolling. I very intentionally gave myself a date for when I was going to pitch and when this book idea of mine was going to happen. I had passion, intention, and I was determined. I am a firm believer in practice intention setting and manifesting, so stay with me here. The month that I was ready to get moving on this book of mine, I commented on a post that Quarto, my now publisher, posted. And in that moment, I believed in my heart and I knew in my head that I wanted to work with them. From all the research that I did, I saw that they published books that are art-based and crafty and all of the things that I had dreamed of. But little did I know, an editor at Quarry, their imprint in the US, was following me back. You never know who is watching what you're sharing. And I always say that to my kids. So that week, I got an email that made me throw my phone and ugly cry. The first of many in this process, I have to say. It was an email asking if I was interested in potentially publishing a book with them. That little tomboy crime-fighting crusader who never followed her passion for art was who celebrated in that moment. And as I share this, I'm feeling a little bit emotional. The rest is how you say history. The point of me sharing this part of my story and journey is to inspire you to think about all the things you dreamed about growing up, but never really took it to heart. Whether it was just circumstances that you were surrounded by, or maybe limiting beliefs as to something that you just couldn't see yourself ever having an opportunity to do. I can relate. I would often look up to people who were living their art-filled life and having experiences that I could only dream of having, and thought that they were more talented than me, or had someone show them the way, which I never had. Or maybe they had more education, or were smarter, or they just had more time. Or maybe they lived in a place where lots of artists lived. Or whatever story I told myself, the truth is they were probably just like me. Someone who had a dream, maybe a little bit of talent to start, and then worked on their skills, their knowledge, their courage, and one day, the timing was just right. For me, it didn't happen until I was 50. For some, it happens when they're much younger, and for others, even when they're older. What I am really hoping you get out of me sharing this story is that I want you to pay attention to those dreams you had when you were growing up, or when you were in your 20s, or whenever. The moments you thought to yourself, wouldn't that be nice? And just let them pass you. Because you don't need to be the most talented, smartest, youngest, prettiest, richest, I don't know, whatever bullshit we say to ourselves when we see something that we want to achieve in others. You know, those little stories. You can have those things for yourself. Passion can fuel many dreams. Setting an intention or a goal, whatever you want to call it, that comes from a place of passion. And passion is the most powerful start you can give yourself when you are looking to achieve something. Passion is what fuels us as artists. We have a passion for making art, for expressing that tactile, creative side. If we didn't, we wouldn't make art. Chefs have a passion for food, and it's what fuels them when they work relentlessly in high-stress situations day in and day out. I can only imagine, but I am totally thinking about the bear right now. Passion is what will get you to move the needle when you are faced with challenges and roadblocks. It's what will help you find the grit you need to follow your desires, dreams, goals, you name it. I don't want you to wait until you're 50 to realize your dream of always wanting to try maybe watercolor painting, for instance. I want you to do it earlier than I did. I want you to feel supported and inspired. The passion that I realized that I have for teaching is what helped me finish the book. There were tough moments and hard conversations, and limiting beliefs popped up for me in weird situations and in weird moments. But even the physical limitations that I experienced during the process, if I wasn't passionate about my hope, what my why was for writing this book, then I would have just walked away so many times through the process. Okay, so what I really hope you're getting from this episode is that if we look closely at the things we're interested in, that sparks something in us that we keep returning to again and again, we learn so much more about what lights us up and what makes us happy and genuinely authentic in our modern times with access to information about who we'd never really have an opportunity to cross paths with. We're really, truly blessed to have information from so many different people around the world and access to education, classes, books, knowledge, all of that. We truly are blessed to have access to all of that and to have them at our fingertips. But we're also inundated with information. We're influenced by things like this podcast, people's Instagram feeds, other people's YouTube videos, of course, books and things like that. They are all wonderful. And I feel like we have to be a little discerning with what we're consuming. But we also have to consume wisely and strategically. And what I mean by that is I just want to offer some advice about balance and consuming what others are doing and sharing and how they are living, what they are creating with what maybe you want to be doing more of, the things that you would do, maybe full time, even if you weren't getting paid to do it. I want you to take a step back from moments of consuming to be able to think about what you are passionate about, to process maybe the information that you're taking in and deciding that if someone told you maybe that you weren't good enough to make art or to be an artist full time, that you would do it. You would do it still, and you would find a way to do it because you have passion and desire and you want to express it. So how do you do these things? It's really all about recognizing moments where you can see things repeated in your life, like I did with the books and wanting to make art and finding a passion to sharing my knowledge with others. I didn't look for those hints online or by asking other people, although you can actually. If you have someone in your life who you know deeply, who would speak openly and honestly, maybe ask them. Ask them what they see in you or what they recognize in you that's unique. You never know. There might be little nuggets or aha moments there that you didn't see in yourself. But it's recognizing those moments that you have maybe a little spark of joy or a hint of nudging you towards something that really makes you happy and something that you want to spend your time on. It doesn't even have to be something that you do full time or create a business from. It's just looking around you and discovering what you're drawn to, or maybe that you've always had an affinity for, and expressing it more. What offers you those moments of pure joy? Follow those little nuggets and just notice what comes up and where they lead you. I'm telling you, when you find those little nuggets and recognize the things that you are truly passionate about, the path to spending more time on your passions will begin to reveal themselves. We just need to balance the outward consumption and being in the role of consuming and viewing to being in more of an active role of action and doing. It's a tricky balance, even for myself. But my goal for all of the things that I create, whether they're online classes, live workshops, books, Instagram posts, you name it, I don't know, all of the things that we do as creators, especially someone like myself who does this full time, is I just want you to make art, to try sketching, for you to share your art, and even to maybe sell your art if that's something you're passionate about. Maybe there are people who are passionate about collecting art. Of course there are. But it's a tricky balance. I want you to be here with me and listen to this podcast and consume what I have to share. But I also then want you to turn everything off and to go and make art or go find what lights you up and makes you creative. This episode ended up being a little different than I initially planned, but I guess I was just so passionate that I had to share more about hoping to inspire you to look inward and discover what you are passionate about. And even if it feels like a pipe dream, you don't need special powers to achieve it. Just find more ways of doing what lights you up and what you do for free, even if no one else experienced it or even knew you were doing it, but just yourself and that little dreamer from your younger years. I just want you to express that side of yourself and to follow your passions, because you don't know where it will lead you. And you can plan as much as you want, but I can tell you from experience, the path getting there is always the surprise. Okay, tell me what you thought of this episode. Do you want to hear more stories? Do you want more art tips, business tips? Some will be lighter, trust me. Let me know if this episode inspired you to take action and to look more closely at what ignites you and what you're passionate about. And if you don't want to comment publicly, send me an email. You don't have to post it publicly. I'd love to hear from you. It's Nicki@lifeidesign.com. And don't forget to subscribe to updates here for podcast episodes, but also at lifeidesign.com, especially if you have a passion for learning watercolor and for making art. Check out my classes and my books. And until next time, my fellow creative, I hope you find ways to express more joy and creativity in your everyday. And I'll see you in the next episode.